this point. It was kind of something that I wanted to achieve not so long ago, just because I had a whole bunch of my personal possessions that I didn't really have any need for at my mother's house, and I felt like a step to becoming truly independent. I don't know, just being part of just being a man means looking after your own stuff, taking responsibility for your own shit. So I don't have anything that can't be thrown out at my mother's place now. The CD video was part of what I brought back with me. So today I'm gonna do a video with some of my toys. I'm going to start with the, I guess the newest ones. I guess this is the newest one. This is kind of like a model kit, like Gundam models that you get in the box, and the pieces that are all kind of vacuum formed onto the tray, and you break the pieces off and then you follow the instructions and put them together. And this is basically what that is. I got this in South Korea, where I lived and worked for a year back in 2010, I think. So this is like a robot mech suit with this little character here. His name is, I think I remember his name is Geroro, and he is part of a troop of alien frogs led by Captain Geroro. Geroro. This is Geroro with a G, and the leader is Geroro with a K, and they're an alien frog race. Obviously they don't look like that. That came to Earth as an invasion party and ended up liking the place and staying. So instead of ruling Earth, they live with a family and do all the house cleaning. It's kind of like a comedy anime story. So this is Geroro, and he's in a little mix. I didn't watch a whole lot of the TV show. I watched a few episodes, but it was just kind of hilarious and cool, and the theme tune was actually my favorite part of it, I think. But yeah, so this is him in a little mech suit. There's not really any battling or fighting or weird underage love stories like most anime. It's just a comedy about these alien frog people that live with a family and are supposed to rule the world, and instead kind of go and do the grocery shopping and the house cleaning and stuff. So I built this little guy. I got this for my birthday whilst I was in Korea, from a girl that I was dating at the time. It's cool. I like it. It's quite dusty. I need to clean it up. So that's kind of the newest one. Next are a little collection. I'll try and get them in one at a time. Next are a collection of characters, figures from the Final Fantasy computer game series. This is a figurine of Squall Leonard from Final Fantasy VIII. He's the main character in the game, and his little necklace always falls out of position. And this is his default weapon, the gunblade. Now, a lot of people that play the Final Fantasy series don't really rate Final Fantasy VIII very highly, and I guess part of the reason that I was such a fan of the game is because Squall is really quite an anti-hero. He's quite angsty and quite troubled individual, and he's reluctantly the person that has to save the day and get everything done, and he falls in love as well. It's got Final Fantasy VIII has got a far more literal love story than the other Final Fantasy games, which typically have a love story aspect to them, but 8 it's quite central to the plot. It's quite a large part of it, and I quite like it. It's I guess it's kind of like a love story that is aimed more at men, or maybe just guys who are pussies, but I really liked it. So yeah, Final Fantasy VIII doesn't get rated very highly by Final Fantasy gaming fans generally, but I really liked it. There are aspects to the gameplay which are annoying, like the draw system, but I won't get into it. I would be here all day. But yeah, so this is Squall, the main character from Final Fantasy VIII. In a really weird, unnatural stance that I've just put him in. But I'll just move him over here for now. So, these Final Fantasy figurines I got whilst I was at university, which was about, I can't even remember anymore, 2005 to 2008. So I got these characters with student loan money in about 2007. And they don't really hold much value, any nostalgic or personal value. They cost about £18 each at the time, and it feels like a waste of money if I throw them away. And they're kind of cool. I just don't have the space to put them anywhere or display them. Like, I guess I'm not collecting them for resale. I mean, they're out of the boxes and I've had my fun with them now. They were, I just quite liked posing them and setting them up, so I guess if I one day had a cabinet of some sort, I could set them up like that. But again, even though they were £18, they're not exactly the kind of high quality display model pieces that you can buy. But anyway, this young lady is Tifa, I think it's Tifa Hartley from Final Fantasy VII. It's been a long time. I don't remember their surname so well. But she's from Final Fantasy VII. And more specifically, this character model that isn't really reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII is based from the character Fantasy VII Advent Children, which was a computer animated feature-length movie that came out in, I want to say 2006, and was supposedly a sequel to Final Fantasy VII, the video game. The story was crap, but the animated fight sequences were really cool. But yeah, so this is what the character model is based on. So that's Tifa. I'm sure it's heartily. And I can't stand her up when she's about to get thrown against the wall if she doesn't stand up. Okay. Off we go with it. Okay. So I got a few of these ones. Okay. Next up. Again, from the Final Fantasy Advent Children animated movie. This is Vincent Valentine, who is one of my favourite characters from the Final Fantasy VII original game, which retrospectively people are beginning to say is really overrated and not that good, which is quite funny because I remember everyone saying that it was one of the greatest games of all time. But I guess the fans ruined it by overrating it and overegging it, and then shit like this got made. There was a game called Dirge of Cerberus, which was a Vincent Valentine shooter game, which was awful. Which is kind of his model here too. I mean, this is how I remember him and love him. This is some weird high-resolution version of him, I suppose. Still, it was a fun movie, for the action at least. Yeah. Square Enix is a company that is an amalgamation of Squaresoft and Enix, and Squaresoft made Final Fantasy VII along with 8 and 9 and everything preceding that, and 10, which were all good. But when the merger took place and the amalgamated company existed as Square Enix rather than Squaresoft, a lot of bad decisions have been made since, and the company is receding quite quickly, it seems. So, yeah. Advent Children was made under the umbrella of Square Enix. I'm pretty certain that it's not something that Squaresoft would have ever done. I think they have more integrity than to try and milk a past franchise. It was always their idea and ideal that every new title that they made was somehow an improvement on the last. There's an airplane. Oh good. He's taller. Tifa, so I'll put Tifa in front so you can at least see them both. Wow, he's like never draw blood because it was so sharp. Ah, this is Sephiroth. Sephiroth is the villain in Final Fantasy VII. It would take a long time to kind of explain the plot details behind his existence throughout the story. So it's just safe to say that he's the bad guy, and he wants to do terminal damage to the Earth, and then try to harvest the energy from the Earth at the point of the terminal damage in order to become a god. He's crazy. He was crazy. He was meant to be crazy in the game. As you can see, he's missing a shoulder pad. I lost it. It's a shame. Let's try and pose him somehow. Really cool character. I quite like in stories the kind of psychotic characters, and he's definitely crazy. And he's kind of before he lost it and became a supervillain, he was this legendary soldier that everyone had heard a tale about in one of his many conquests. So I'll pose him like that. Not very interesting, but he was kind of, when they made the model, they clearly designed him so that he would be standing up straight. Sorry, they clearly designed him so that he would be standing up straight. They didn't want him to pose in the same way as some of the other characters were designed. Okay, so the last Final Fantasy character is one that I got from a girl I was going out with at the time as a birthday present. And it's Cloud, who is the main character in Final Fantasy VII. Again, he looks really lame, in my personal opinion here. Nowhere near as cool as he does in the game. This is his animated movie character model. Covered in dust again. But yeah, including bike and some Buster Sword invention that was created for the movie. This sword in the movie breaks into 7 or 8 different swords. It's kind of, they just did it to animate it because they thought it would look cool, and it does, but it makes no sense. Yeah, is little Final Fantasy figurine set. So I'm going to move these and move on to the next set. But before I move them, I need to put them into simpler and less space-consuming positions, ready to be put away properly. I am planning to work on my Dark Souls 2 series of ASMR videos, but the recording software on my computer records in 1080p and saves the recordings as MP4s, and MP4s can't be edited in editing suites like Final Cut or Avid, because they are long form GOPs. Basically they can't go onto a timeline like a .mov can, and currently I'm transcoding the file entirely when all it needs is a simple rewrap. Whether you know what that means or not isn't really important. What is important is that the way I'm doing it now can take several hours, up to 10, 12, 18 hours to make all the footage eligible for editing. But one of my co-workers showed me a technique in where it takes a couple of minutes to just change the way in which the file is read so that it can be edited. But it's quite complicated. It's using command prompt and looking at code and editing file structure code. So I'm still going to do the Dark Souls playthrough, but before I do that, I want to learn this technique so that I can roll them out without such time consumption as the first one did to take, and also the Mark of the Ninja one did take. These are the oldest figurines that I own. The ones that would have come in a reverse chronological order, I'm gonna save for last because they're more outrageous. These two figurines are all that remains of my Terminator 2 action figure collection. I was a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan when I was a kid, and as a result, a lot of my toys consisted of Terminator 2 action figures and Last Action Hero action figures, which manufacturers released a buttload of figures for both movie franchises. These are all that survived. I became a teenager and thought it was embarrassing and lame to have toys, so decided to throw it all out and be a big boy. But I had at least decimal point of intelligence to keep a couple for nostalgia's purposes, which I should be grateful for because at least I've got something left from that period in my life. And it's nice to keep that kind of stuff, even if it seems stupid and lame now. In your life, you should at least hang on to some trinkets that are relevant to that period in your life, because you don't know how bad your life is going to get, and you don't know how drastically things are going to change. And it's nice to have things that remind you of a time that wasn't so complicated and wasn't so difficult. Just to remind you that there was a time when things weren't so complicated and difficult, where your biggest problem was not being able to go outside and play with friends because it was raining. So yeah, I'm glad that I at least kept these two fellas. This guy's head pops off and his body blows apart. He had interchangeable arms, but I've only got the one. I had this really cool and really messy Terminator toy where you had a Terminator skeleton, like the robot skeleton, and you put it in this machine in like a mold, and you mix this goo up, this pink goo, and you poured it into the top and plunged it in, and it made a skinned Terminator, like a little naked Terminator man, and you let it set and it turned to this like jelly. And then the idea was you had all these tools and you cut all the skin off it. I mean, looking back, thinking back, is quite I guess it's quite a brutal and weird toy to have, but at the time it was so cool having Terminator from the movie with real skin that you could pull apart and rip off and see the skeleton underneath. So that was cool. My mum bought that for me on a little kind of holiday to London when I was a kid, and we went to we either got that in Hamleys or Harrods, one of the big department stores that sells toys for kids. Okay, so last but by no means least is this fella, which I'm concerned is going to be slightly noisy. Now I intentionally put it all together like this so that it'd be a bit of a shock to look at. This is my Transformers Armada collection in one. Transformers Armada was like series, like 5th generation of the Transformers saga, if you will. This is a combination of Megatron, which obviously is the leader of the Decepticons, Tidal Wave, which is a Decepticon, and lots of mini-bots, which I don't know when they got introduced into Transformers lore. I think it was during Armada, but they're miniature Transformers that are non-aligned, that kind of are more simple in their intelligence and tend to follow whoever gets to them first. So there was a kind of storyline where the Decepticons and the Autobots would scramble around trying to find these mini-cons, they were called, scattered around the globe once they crash landed on Earth. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to detach the mini-cons, which might be quite loud. I can't even remember how many of them there are. I'm a little worried that this is going to be quite noisy. I was on Skype to a girl that I used to go out with. Kind of doing a show and tell with these before, because she watches ASMR videos, and it was really working, and she was kind of basically asleep, and then it got quite noisy, and I woke her up and she was kind of half asleep and quite grumpy and kind of annoyed at me, so, not surprisingly, for making a bunch of noise after she'd just fallen asleep. So I'll try not to repeat that mistake. Ow. The main issue was that the Megatron Transformer had an electronic voice box that would speak if you turned a part of his body. But I've since removed the batteries from him, so that can't happen anymore. That's all of the minicons. Okay. So I have to try not to make too much noise here. I decided not to say anything then because I could already tell that I was going to need to sound edit that whole sequence. Okay, so the 3 chunks I just removed will make big tidal wave. Eventually. So this is Megatron. And in Transformers Armada, he turns into a tank. It seems to make more noise when it's on the table. It's got this little knife of sorts. So I wonder how much work I just made for myself. With all that noise. Ah dear. I can't even remember how this comes together as, okay, the robot. Okay, I know now. Torso and head. Arms. Legs. Feet. The thing with Transformers is that they need to be able to stand up. Part of the whole gimmick is that they should be able to stand up. Otherwise, if you're a kid and you turn a car into a robot or a helicopter into a robot and it doesn't stand up like a robot, you're gonna feel pretty ripped off. In fact, this guy, tidal wave, is so big, he probably doesn't fit into the shot. This is tidal wave as a robot. He's an absolute giant in the cartoon and the video game for PlayStation 2 that was made by an Australian games developer, which honestly I don't really know many Australian games developers, but think I remember now. So that's what tidal wave looks like as a battleship. Yeah. Convincing. So we've got the mini guns. They're fun. Little figures. So they all turn into robots. Yeah, robots. In disguise. It's not easy to tell with some of them where their faces are supposed to be when they're robots. It's kind of obvious that when they made them, designed them at the toy company, their focus was more on how they'd look as a vehicle. This is supposed to be like a futuristic cop car. Got the rocket fires on this guy. His legs pop out here. His arms pop out here. And his head, his face is there. It's quite simple, but interesting color choice also. I'm being a little heavy-handed with these fellas. This is a rocket pod when he attaches to a transformer. These are supposed to be his legs and his head is kind of in there. And then he becomes like a fire engine. I guess this is a hose. And there's the red and white. So I'd guess it's a fire engine. This is like a gun pod. You put the guns up and you get the legs and you get the arms. And I guess this is a face. This one is kind of neither here nor there. It doesn't really resemble a robot, and it doesn't really resemble a vehicle much either, but it's supposed to be some sort of little mobile launching buggy. I don't think they come off. This one's cool. It's one of my favorite ones. Mainly because if you flip this around, he's got a little face here. And here is his arms and his legs. bomber plane. You know, this one is, I never really figured out how this one's supposed to be set up, to be honest. I've played with it a bunch of times and I still don't quite understand. Got some legs here. And I guess these can constitute arms. And this would be his face. So and his legs articulate quite a lot actually. So you can get him to do a karate kick. But yeah. And then Christ. I've got to transform him. Okay. And this little fella is like a stealth bomber, like a stealth jet. I mean, none of them actually resemble vehicles that you'd recognize, but in the future somewhere this would be a space jet fighter of some sort. Couldn't take off from this platform. Obviously the proportions are awful. This guy's quite cool. It's because he oh yeah, he does quite a, there's like a nice little flip design to him where the fuel tank becomes his face, and he's got this nice arm with a nice bit of articulation, and this rocket launcher arm here, and his obviously his legs, but you twist his body in half, and then you twist each half individually. To get him into vehicle mode. And then you get this mobile rocket launcher platform at the end. This obviously is just some missile launcher platform. Flip out these parts and they're the legs, and you turn these around and he's got explosive rockets for arms and a rudimentary face, but there he is, still transforms. Simple. I'm still recording, sorry. Okay, two more. This ninja star is this little transformer face. I can see his arms are here. He's quite fidgety. I can't even remember how I've transformed him to begin with. And then this panel flips down and the arms flip around. So his legs are kind of funny, but he is a proper transformer. And then a more traditional stealth bomber that we would know by the shape. Rubber tip. Don't know why that's rubber. Strange. And then last is this, got these jaw gun turrets. Got some legs that fold out. Quite cool. And this is face, which means that flips down and the face pops out. And these are in fact the arms of this fella. I'm sure they rotate. I thought they rotated. It'd be a bit strange if his arms were just pointed straight up into the air. Ah, I guess you just twist them and that's him. And there's your cockpit. And the legs can go back in to make part of the main body, although this doesn't look quite right, actually. Just gonna check. No, it must be. They must go up like so. And that must be it. Yeah, okay. And then these will be the propellers. They kind of fall forward. I'm gonna suggest it has a kind of reverse propulsion system of some sort that was only discovered in the future. Anyway, the video cut out. That's the end of the show and tell now. So, I hope you're sleeping by now. I'm sorry that this video is so bad. The microphone's not in a very good position, and all of my rechargeable batteries have run themselves dead, so I've constantly had to mess with the exposure on the camera. So the lighting is kind of all over the place, and the sound is kind of all over the place, and yeah, I wasn't really prepared for this video properly, but I just wanted to kind of get it out of the way, and I had nothing to do. I had a evening of nothing. So I've got to go now. So if I don't see you later, Borada, Penanda, Anosta.